And welcome, Tyler of Resurrected Divinity. Good morning.
Appreciate you having me on.
No, thanks for responding. You'd be amazed about how many people aren't narcissistic enough to want to go onto a podcast and talk about their stuff.
Yeah.
Or they're too narcissistic and determine, oh, you don't have enough following count or streams per episode. I don't want to go on there. I was like, look, buddy, yeah. I have more people than you do following me.
I've got too much free time anyway, so I don't even judge by that. If somebody wants to talk, I'll, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've enjoyed doing it. I'm looking forward to moving back to the U.S. next year so I can have more consistency. With the whole the time forward, time back. I don't know why they don't undo it. It is so annoying. It's good for me because my school is based in the States. So I have 14 hours extra on Monday morning that as long as I submit my assignments by 1300 on Monday, I'm still good because that's midnight in the States on Sunday. So
yeah,
it gets annoying after a while. So
are you like, how many hours like forward or behind? Because like I'm in Eastern time.
So yeah, I'm 14 hours ahead of you.
Ahead, okay.
So it is Wednesday morning at 5 a.m. right now.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I got you. I knew. I was born in Germany, and they're like 6 hours ahead, but I didn't know if Japan was already, across that. I don't know. There's like a line.
Yeah.
Where
prime meridian.
Yeah. I'm not even sure where it's at. It's somewhere in the Pacific.
Yeah, it's different. So
yeah.
Anyway, hopefully that's not coming through. Let me get rid of Facebook.
Oh, I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, the end of the year is going around. And you have released Lycanthropy, right?
Yeah. Pardon me. I'm just finishing the last of my Christmas leftovers. But Lycanthropy was actually, I had back in October, before I switched labels, I released Lycanthropy, which was a 4-track EP. The first track on it had a guest feature from Mats Funderud from Cranium, which is, I guess you could consider it unusual because, me personally, if somebody, respects my message and wants to like collaborate, I'll let them, like, even if it is a secular band, and Cranium is, not exactly the most PG rated band in existence. So, and I've known Mats as like a Facebook friend to some degree for a few years. So we were talking one day, and interestingly enough, he liked my music, and he actually volunteered to do a guest vocal spot on a song. And so I'm like, sure, I don't mind. But so first track, it's a track that with him, and then the fourth track is actually a cover of a Flyleaf song, which, in a way seems a little comedic because of the polar opposite genre, but I'm honestly actually a pretty big fan of at least older Flyleaf, so I really wanted to cover a song of theirs. But the recent release is Lycanthropy 2, and essentially it's just a Lycanthropy EP with a few bonus tracks, and one of those was a Broken Flesh cover that I did, and this was a kind of a spur of the moment idea I had after signing to Broken Curfew Records, which if you know of Mangled Carpenter, Seth from Mangled Carpenter, he runs Broken Curfew. It's a great label. I've been loving it so far. And Glay, I don't know if you've heard of Glay, one man deathcore band. He's actually a really good friend of mine that I've known for years. And he lives just a couple states away from me. I actually hung out with him once a few years ago. And also Hard Look, a more recent buddy, but another great friend as well, Chris from Hard Look. All three of those bands, Mangled Carpenter, Hard Look, Glay, very much worth looking up. But yeah, Lycanthropy too. Sorry if I go on tangents sometimes. It's just kind of a spur of the moment idea
That's
we
literally
had.
podcasts.
Yeah, I guess so. I've only been like on one other podcast, and that was my buddy Zach Glay. He started one recently, and we've done a couple episodes. But yeah, this EP was kind of like a spur of the moment idea we had for like a re-release with some bonus tracks that we could drop as a introduction to being on this label. And that's pretty much what it was, but it's been fun. I've been loving it so far. It's Broken Curfew's just been a real solid label already.
I can second that. I've been talking and actually working with Seth on stuff. So
yeah,
he's such a genuine guy.
Oh yeah, he is.
He's become a good friend right now. So and he's no BS. So that's what I like.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, that's what I was about to say. He's super transparent and very honest, and that it's kind of a last minute idea signing to them. And my previous level, Coliosis, I want to shout them out too, because what Cole does is really cool. He's very honest as well. I was talking to Zach because, like I said, he's been one of my best buddies for years, and he recommended me sign to Broken Curfew, and he introduced me to Seth, and I talked to him for probably about 2 hours on the phone right before I signed. He's the most laid back, honest, genuine guy you could meet, and he's got a common passion for horror films that I kind of dig. He's kind of an independent horror movie writer, I guess you could say, or I know he does music scores too and things like that. But love him, great guy.
yeah, shout out Seth. And I like that. For my aspect, I've been doing a lot of self-mixing, and I'm really trying to explore. One of the people I follow on TikTok, Adam of Study Show, he's currently working with a band called Mara Jade. They got to number 30 on Apple Metal Music.
Mm-hmm.
So Mara Jade's really awesome. Shout out to Marty over there. I can't remember the other guy's name. I'm sorry, man. I'm terrible with names. I'll remember your face for like 90 years. I won't know your name. I'm I've literally
similar.
I've been in a store and like talked to somebody. I'm like, I've literally eaten food in your house. I don't know your name.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. But where is I going with this? Adam talks about and the way that music has become in the industry of not really needing to go to a big recording studio and to massive labels. It really is on us to become as fluent in other aspects of it. So, like right now I'm learning how to program MIDI drums and bass guitar and learning all these different aspects of it so I can explore. I don't have any fascinations of, touring on Warped Tour or opening for somebody. Yeah. I'm just doing this for fun because I want to have more music. Because for me, when I was thinking of like Christian heavy metal, it was like In the Midst of Lions and For Today, and like the Crimson Armada, a bunch of people I love weren't making music anymore. And so I was like, fine, I'll start making my own. And then that's been going on 2 years now, 3 years now. And I've only put one single out because it takes a lot of work to put music out.
Yeah, it it genuinely does. Only reason I think I've released so much is because I've got too much free time. Like I have a job, I'm employed, but I I get bored and then the creativity just starts rolling sometimes. And that's probably
That's
about the
the way to
best
go.
way. Yeah.
That's the way to go. Josh, that's his name. The other guy of Mara J. Josh and Marty. There we go.
Yeah. That's a Star Wars reference, ain't it? That band name?
Yeah.
Like
yeah. Before Kathleen Kennedy came along with her BS and ruined Star Wars. Luke Skywalker.
Don't even get me started.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Luke Skywalker ended up turning one of Darth Vader's female assassins who was supposed to kill Luke, and she ended up raising Luke's babies.
Yeah. Yeah, those were
the good books.
Yeah, I'm not a diehard Star Wars fan anymore, but I still like it for the good old pre-Disney days. The whole, what do you call it, the legacy universe.
Yeah.
I've actually I probably couldn't even turn my camera around it. I've actually got a shelf full of like some Stormtrooper figurines, and a few of them are like custom paints of Stormtrooper classes that were like in like the legacy universe. Actually, let me see it because it's right here. If I could just gotta plug a couple things. I gotta hold on a second. This might be one of those edit spots just because I gotta.
No worries.
Yeah, I'm gonna just turn my background off briefly. All right. So that's a few of the figurines I got.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Clone Troopers.
That's actually
Death.
That's actually Stormtroopers with the 501st colors. These
okay, I see.
Yeah, these are like custom paints. That my favorite's that black and gold one. That's a Nova Trooper, which was like heck, I can't remember, but it was a class of Stormtroopers that was, I think, in some of the comics back in the pre-Disney days. And then I also got that big, I guess it's Greek Orthodox flag that says, I'm having a brain fart. It's like it's the numeral, like the Greek lettering ICXCNIKA, which is like a short abbreviation for Jesus Christ Conquers in Greek. So I got that behind there. But yeah, I just had to show that since it briefly got on the subject of Star Wars.
Yeah, we could have a whole discussion on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I got into it in 7th grade, and I was a diehard, so to speak, Star Wars nerd. But yeah, that was back before, like you said, before Kathleen Kennedy ruined it.
Yeah, it's just sad what we could have had. And I think the biggest issue, we're on the subject, we're going down this road real fast. I think the biggest issue was the studio hired a director, decided he's known for making movies that are hit or miss, and then decides we're going to micromanage literally everything he does to make it to where he doesn't want to be in the other movies as the main director for all three. A bunch of stuff he wanted to do, he was told by the studio, no, you can't do that. And then they end up bringing in 2 other different directors for all the other movies. And the one that tries to repair it all just does something very silly, which if you've read the extended universe, it happened. Like the Emperor comes back as a clone. So while it was silly and the Emperor came back as a clone, like, okay, that was silly the way that they executed it. And it just was completely just all over the place. Right. So it just, what I feel like if they had a bunch of footage that they didn't show, and you get a bunch of fans that actually want to like do the movies justice for what they made, you could have some re-edits. But I think there's a lot of stuff that's just a big issue. Like Kylo Ren at the end, it just didn't make sense with what he was doing. Oh no, I'm really Ben Solo. I'm sorry. I love you so much. We can't be together because I'm a criminal across the universe. So I'll die for you. And then it's just so silly.
The main issue with Star Wars and a lot of other franchises these days is it seems like, I don't know, it seems like they stopped trying to appeal to fans and started trying to pander to people who aren't really even fans, is the way it looks. It's like, that's why Henry Cavill stopped working on The Witcher, because he said, I love this IP. Like, I literally play the IP. I'm familiar with everything. I know how the characters are. I'm not basing it off of just the book, and the video games. Like, I've read them both, and routinely just arguing about how they were trying to, not to go on this topic, but they were just like trying to change the characters completely, implementing like diversity, the DEI, equity and inclusion. And just like, he felt like we could do that. Like, I'm okay with that, but it's like, you're just doing stuff that it doesn't make sense. And always having to argue about how characters would be. And it's just like, you get people hiring these writers who don't care about what they're writing. So, which it never made sense to me, like why the studio wouldn't hire fans who like the stuff, right? I mean, it's like they just, like, they might as well hire some second graders who have just now, learned about a little bit, like watched one movie, and they probably have even better writing. Honestly, if they did that a lot of times these days, because, well, for one, second graders don't really care about all this, so to speak, like woke diversity, whatever, it's like, oh, we have to make this character gay, or we have to make this character a different race, all that ridiculous stuff. Like, no, just accurately portray the character. That's like all I ask for sometimes. It's basic fan service, not all this other stuff.
Sorry, he's a lap cat.
Yeah, I can see.
It's like they're doing this whole live action. So Disney wants to do a live action of every one of their movies, which I don't think it's live action if you're using CGI for 99% of the movie. That's a CGI. Right. That ain't live action. Shut up. Yeah. Live action is getting an actual lion for Lion King and being smart and filming. That would have been cool. And then CGI-ing the mouth, I'd been okay with that. But, it's kind of hard to train a freaking lion.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But I think the issue that they're doing is they're going through their whole IP process. And I don't think I have an issue with them like exploring sides of a story. Like, for instance, taking it like, oh, Cruella de Vil, like, why did she become the bad guy? But at the same time, they like make them these anti-heroes who are just misunderstood. It just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. And then they go and do these movies where, for instance, Snow White, they hire Rachel Ziegler, who's a Gen Z, who's going to literally say anything that's going to make her more money to sound more popular. Yeah. Who routinely comes out saying she hates X, Y, and Z. So it's like, I don't know why you would hire such an individual for a movie to do that. And then having to reshoot the entirety of the movie because people don't like the fact that these mystical creatures who clearly in people's minds look a certain way, they went and hired a bunch of like other dwarf, like they didn't even hire like actual dwarfs or little people, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just looked like really weird. And so when the screenshot came out of that set with her and the dwarves, people were upset. And so then they ended up scrapping the movie timeline to go and basically CGI dwarves all over the movie.
Just ridiculous.
And then we get South Park creators, which I'm not a fan of the South Park creators, but their social commentary is absolutely hilarious. And I would suggest people go watch their episode on the Panderverse.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to like South Park a lot. I don't watch it too much anymore. Just I got my reasons, but the thing about all that pandering is like people with dwarfism, or I guess some of them would refer to themselves as dwarves. It depends on the individual. Some people make it out like you can't do anything, like hire them in movies to play characters that are smaller characters like the dwarves and the Snow White's dwarves and whatnot. Some people make it out like that's so insensitive, but then there are actors that have that condition that are like, no, that's like, that's me taking like who I am and putting it to good, like to something good. That's like, I like doing this. So I get tired of seeing something like that get totally shut down because just some certain individuals got upset over it. Then it's like, okay, then you just don't do it, but stop ruining it for everybody else. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think when it comes to certain things, it's like Marvel I burned out on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think Disney's learning a very painful lesson. But, I'm never in that going to be situation as a director in a movie. So I have no idea. I'm talking out. I'm a cinephile. I like movies. I like watching how movies are made, looking at them. Yeah. I watch a lot of, if you looked at my YouTube, it's like deathcore Christians, cats, and movie reviews.
Yeah.
And I just think it's interesting. Like, I want to see it. I'm just going to wait for it to come out. Because I haven't found any English subtitles nearby, but the Godzilla -1 just smashed in the box office.
Yeah.
And it just shows like how much they spent on the movie. You don't need to spend a lot of money on a movie. Write a good story, have a director that can execute that story. And it's okay. I don't think people are upset if you include LGBT individuals into the topic. I think the issue is when you make everything about that subject, like, cool. Because if you go back and read comic books, they've had LGBT characters in the comics for a long time, or they were data something. And like John Constantine is having an interspecies relationship with King Shark in DC universe. So
yeah.
Do the fan service.
Yeah.
Do the fan service.
Like those people exist. So of course I don't mind there being, a character or something, but they overdo it to appeal too much to one crowd and to irritate the rest. And it's, yeah.
And then they're like, oh, I have alienated the majority of the population who would actually see this movie. I wonder why nobody is seeing the movie.
Yeah, and then they blame it on homophobia and all that stuff.
Yeah, no. I think it's just silly.
Yeah.
And you see that with music too. You see what some of the big major labels were like, maybe it's not because we try to literally skim every cent off of the artist that people aren't wanting to come to record labels anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to hire some really crazy people. And it's like, no, people just want to make money and you
Yeah.
not take 99 cents or more of it.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Have you seen that video where it talks about, let's say you get signed to a big, massive label. They give you $500,000 up front to go and record a new album, excuse me. So you go to the studio, you record it, it gets popular, they play it around, then you start touring. Let's say massive arenas. By the time you get home after that tour, you are already in debt because everybody has tucked their share. And the record label on top of that takes massive cuts to the individuals. And then you have stuff like, oh, what was that name of that studio? Or not studio. It's like you can buy tickets from them. They were taking artist concessions as well. So it's like, sorry, my cat is throwing up in the background. Oh, what was that? Hold on. I gotta look this up. I want to get it right. Oh, good job. She threw up everywhere. Yeah, venue merchandise cuts. What is it? Everyone's talking about it. So then on top of that, you have these massive arenas who are opening their doors for people to come play music inside their place. They sell out the tickets. And on top of just, people paying for seats, they want a cut of the merchandise that is sold there. So when you get home, you're in debt, and the only way to get out of that debt is to go to the record label, who's going to give you another $500,000 to go record the next album. And the cycle repeats itself. I think that's why a lot of people are just like, why would I do that when you've got, for example, Kanye West, say what you want about him. He's literally going around the world making music in hotel rooms and selling out venues and concerts. Like, what does the record label do for him? Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like, admittedly, I don't study up a whole lot about what goes on with like the big like record labels, but I feel like that would explain why music's going down the drain as far as like the big stuff, because it sounds like people are just trying to get by, making money, and if that's the only motivation for, the music you make is make money off of it, then it's probably not going to be that good. But yeah, that sounds about. I've noticed like with there's a handful of like bigger artists that I like, and I've noticed that they made better music before, I guess you like to put it in simple terms, before they blew up. Like before they got signed to all these, major record labels and started topping charts, and I guess it just. Oh, I'm having a brain fart. But
yeah, I was reading an article on it, and it was talking about, well, this individual from a Decibel magazine, what's his name? Kevin Stewart Pankow, was talking about, as somebody who's worked at a venue, a lot of the issues that the venue has is these all age shows. They can't make as much money because there's no open bar where they can charge triple what the actual alcohol's worth
Yeah.
to make money off of it. So what do? They turn around and ask for commission on merchandising to sell within the venue so that they can do that. Cause then they're like, well, if you think about it, you know, they have to pay the security guards and people that go in and run like say there is a bar, the bartender, everything. The sound mic, they typically have a guy, sound engineers that are on there, security. If you have to have police presence, they're probably paying for off-duty police officers come in to, you know, act as security, that kind of thing. EMTs for big shows. So they're trying to say in the defense that, you know, they have their reasons, but still at the end of the day, after you get done touring, you come home, it's like, well, I'll see you never, because I got to go on the road, make another album.
Yeah. That's just sad too, because I've heard quite a few stories like that. These like bigger metal bands. I think one that I read a while back was on Carnifex or something, that because they got known for having a lot of dark and depressing lyrics, and their vocalist, like, he wrote somewhere in an interview or something, he said that the fact that touring's like taking him away from home all the time is like motivated a lot of his lyrical content or something like that. And I thought, you know, like, that's pretty terrible. But yeah, I'm obviously, as a guy that makes slam and death grind, I'm not looking to strike it big, but yeah, for these bands that do really take off, it ain't always sunshine and rainbows. That's for sure.
Yeah. And what's really weird, like, I would say within the deathcore genre, aside from very huge names, most of the time you're going to go see a deathcore band is at like a small bar, sometimes at Denny's. So it's like you're not really going to these crazy places that are massive arenas. It's not like a Taylor Swift concert. Yeah. Which, not to get sidetracked, but I was on the deathcore Reddit, and this woman was posting. She's like, I'm 100% a Swiftie. And I started listening to Kublai Khan, and people were making fun of me for like, that's such like a basic deathcore girl to get into. And she's like, I don't understand why people hate. Anyway, when you see these bands, they're most of the time touring in an 8-van bus. They're not like Rolling Stones. They don't have a train of semi trucks.
They're not playing a Super Bowl halftime show anytime soon.
It's like one dude's in the back of the van, like trying to find quarters so that they can get some food at the next stop.
Yeah, pretty much. But
it's different. Or like when they go and stay at a hotel, having one guy stand watch so that the freaking music sound van doesn't get stolen with the trailer.
I've seen
that has happened a lot.
That's a story as old as time, it seems. Every
single time the fans come through, like,
yeah,
man, I will let you use my bass guitar. Just please sign it.
Yeah, exactly. Stop. Yeah, I've seen many of those GoFundMes over the years. That's for sure. Whenever that equipment gets stolen, I'll give it to them. Like, you got to have passion to stick in it with that going on.
That's why I don't blame Matty Montgomery of For Today. Like, I want to say they were touring for a long time, 15 plus years. And then he had a son and decided he just wanted to stay home. So he actually ended up commenting on something I said on Instagram, and I wasn't expecting him to reply. But he's working as a pastor and raising his son. So he's not opposed to a For Today reunion. But just right now he's got other priorities.
He's doing something different for God, you know. Like, even
that's
if the
what
music
he said.
phase is, yeah, even if that music part is over with, there's always something else.
Yeah, I think. And then for my experience, I was really getting into deathcore. And I was like, hearing about demons raping some chick in her house just isn't good for the soul all the time. So I was like, I wonder if there is. And that's how I ended up looking for and finding some stuff. But it was like, I have this thing where I get into an anime and it turns out there's only one season or they cut it. And so it's like terrible. I also have this thing where I get into a band and find out that stop chewing on stuff. That they're not together anymore.
Yeah. I've had this, like, I feel like some of the heaviest stuff I've ever listened to is from bands that released like one demo back in 2007, and then called it quits. And I'd always get upset and like, really? This is some of the hardest stuff I've heard in a few months, and they've only got 3 songs from like 15 years ago.
Yeah, they had the best live show. They opened for The Devil Wears Prada. It was a local band in Utah called I Capture Castle. And they had the greatest, they were one of the first bands to do covers of pop songs. Yeah. And they had a cover of a Kesha song, and it was just absolutely fire. Yeah. They had some pretty hard album tracks as it goes. Yeah. Yeah. And then not even a full EP later, they're all doing different stuff.
Yeah. Just called it that. Speaking of like the whole pop song covers thing, actually, Glay, they got me hooked on Grimes a few weeks ago it's one dude. I have a habit of, even with one man bands, as referring to them plural, because it's, usually music made by, but yeah, he did a cover of a song by Grimes and like absolutely nailed it. Like if you're listening to Glay, like look up their song Butterfly. It's a cover of a song by Grimes, and the original song is like a totally different genre entirely, but he nailed it. Like when I finally got around to listening to his new album, that song came up and I had to pause it and listen to the original first, because if I've not heard the original, but there's something about that. Like I thought for a while it'd be cool to do a compilation with some underground bands of like a more underground pop ghost punk or whatever but with like, with different, like underground, slam or even deathcore. Cause I mean, Glay, he does deathcore and all that stuff.
Screamy. Do you know who Screamy Mimi is? He's on TikTok. He started doing a bunch of 30-second vocal covers. He's got a band, and Indra. He's really great. He's physically shaped like a grizzly bear.
Yeah.
He's currently Bro Job kicked out their vocalist. We're separated on terms, so Screamy is filling in for Bro Job. So he's touring with Bro Job right now. It's pretty awesome. But his content is literally memes and him just posting 30-second covers. And he's doing he's been like Mariah Carey's Christmas. Like he'll just do covers of random stuff without not even changing the music. He'll literally just sing the vocal part in in terrible screaming, and he's got this like snarl that's just really freaking great, his soft palette stuff. So, but yeah, I think it's cool to hear covers. And sometimes, in my opinion, I think the Pop Goes Punk does justice to the song more, because some of the songs, just with how they're written, it seems like the genre change makes it better.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I've done in the past, like I did And this was with like older projects that aren't even really active anymore. But I remember I did like a couple of covers of like some like Lana Del Rey songs like years ago. And it's kind of tough to put the creativity to it and turn like the track or instrumental or whatever beat they used into like a metal instrumental, if you know what I mean. And so, doing that seems like it's an art in and of itself. If it was someone of the same genre covering the song, it would not be, I guess, as creative, I would think. So, yeah, I like, when it comes to covers, I love it's fun. It can be pretty fun to just cover something that's completely outside of the genre you're doing.
I was in a car once and me and a buddy were jamming to I Prevail's cover of Blank Space.
Yeah.
And a chick pulled up and she was listening to the original artist's song of Blank Space. And we were just kind of staring because then she realized, wait a minute, we're both listening to the same song. But it's like, not really.
Yeah, it's a touch different.
Yeah. I tried looking up the song. I'm not a fan of Apple Music. Is a love and hate relationship. So
yeah,
it's a mess. And a lot of these companies are kind of crazy with what they are expecting people to pay.
Yeah, I've not bought from Apple Music in a while because it always causes issues with my bank account for some reason. I don't even know how to explain it. I've had to recently because Bandcamp will do the same thing. I don't know why. I've had to message buddies and just PayPal them a few bucks and get them to send me a download. I don't know. But, yeah.
Yeah, it's
going
different.
on tangents.
Yeah, I think Bandcamp is in a good spot. That was something I was wanting to talk about. We were going off on the tangent. This Spotify thing, the change in how they're paying for royalties to artists and what they're doing for artists, I think
they do something for artists.
Yeah.
I've never noticed.
So the policy change people got upset with, and I think it kind of blew up out of proportion. So much so that they've had a lot of the tackling of it in November. They came up with a new policy to basically help independent artists with streaming and livelihood on the company. And so what they wanted to do is, this is on the Spotify page for modernizing their royalty system, is they wanted to fix artificial streaming issues. So people would go pay somebody online to get a bunch of bots to go spam a song to blow up. They wanted to be able to distribute small payments that aren't reaching artists and rein in those attempting to game the system with noise. So I agree with that. I think that the way that they're addressing the streaming things, I think people are still upset about, because they're like, unless you're going to be verifying users, how do you know that that account is real or not? So some people are arguing that this is just a cover for them to not count real-time streams. With how much money, they say that between 1 and 1,000 times the past year, the average track generates 3 cents per month.
Yeah.
And because labels require a minimum to withdraw, banks and charge a transaction fee, this money doesn't reach uploaders, and these small payments are often forgotten about, but in aggregate, they can add up to 40 million per year, which instead increases payments to artists who are dependent on streaming revenue. So in 2024, you've got to have at least 1,000 streams in the past 12 months to generate recorded royalties.
Yeah,
And
I've not even read what all the, because honestly, like, so before I signed to Broken Curfew, I had like my own DistroKid that which is how a lot of people get their stuff to Spotify, is through DistroKid. And I just paid like the annual fee, which I'm trying to think off the top of my head how much it's worth it. But I wanted to be on Spotify just to get my music more reach, like to more places, and really no other reasons. I've never paid attention to how much money I'd make through Spot, but if there is any, it's like nothing. I've never noticed. Put it this way, I've never noticed any money I've gotten from Spotify. If they have sent it, it's probably enough to pay for a pack of candy or something every year.
Hey, that's pack candy you weren't able to afford before.
Yeah.
Okay. I was actually reading through the terms and clause on their blog. So apparently there's a genre of white, like they call it noise. So it's like white noise, whale noise, like atmospheric, like background sleep noise or whatever.
Yeah.
So they said that listeners enjoy the genre, but bad actors, what they do is they make 30-second songs and stack them in a playlist without a listener noticing so that they could outsize the payments. Because without putting these restrictions on it, as long as they meet the minimum 30-second stream time for that song, they get a pay of royalty, and then it goes to the next song. So they wanted to address some of those issues. So like, I think some of these are kind of in a good way, but still at the end of the day, it's kind of like when I gave up Netflix recently. I've had Netflix for a very long time. And my issue was the amount of content I enjoyed, or things that I would watch, just repeat watch, would disappear. They would cancel the shows. I was finding a lot of the stuff I'd want to watch isn't even on Netflix anymore. A lot of the original content, they would make one season and that's it. And it's like, I don't want to put my investment in there. And then the whole writers and actors strike happened. And so Netflix goes, we want to turn around and pay the artists more. Okay, cool. So we're asking for $25 a month now. All because the guy at the top doesn't want to take a cut in the paycheck. And so we are funding the bill for them to pay the actors and writers what they're due, because they don't want to obviously take the cut to their paycheck. So I was like, we left it. I haven't looked back.
Yeah, I can't. No, I use Netflix now and then, but it's because I've got family that are subscribed to it, and they just, let me. But I, if I was out on my own, I don't know, $25 a month, hard pass.
Yeah, no,
it's not worth. I'm not a heavy binge watcher of anything. Like, it's just, no. A lot of times I like finding a free movie on Tubi more than any of that.
And then they have, because I'm overseas, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not even on the American Netflix. So I can't even watch the American Netflix. But when I go on the military base, I have an American VPN. I'm watching it on there. And people are like, well, why don't you just turn a VPN on all the time? I'm like, because I don't want a VPN on all the time. It slows the internet down.
Oh, yeah.
And I would be watching something, but it's not on the Japanese. So as soon as I get home, I try to continue to watch something, and it's like, oh, it's not available. It's like, I don't even know why I pay you guys. So my wife and I discussed it, and we decided, there's other things out there. So
yeah, I, I'm not. I feel like it's some people pay outrageous outrageous amounts of money for all these different streaming sites, and that ain't worth it. I'd for one, I'd be broke, but I there's easier ways to watch stuff every now and then. It's just, and I'm kind of like, brain fart again, sorry, but I don't know. I totally lost my train of thought there, but it's happens with me now. I don't feel like paying that much. Long story short,
yeah,
I'm a cheapskate.
It's I'm trying to find it. Somebody did a calculation. It's like if you wanted to get, let's say you had one show, and that one show is on all these different streaming platforms. I want to say Screen Rant did it. To have Apple TV, Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, CBS, Peacock, Showtime, Starz, HBO Max, and Hulu, all at their basic services, you're running $99.90 a month. And it's ridiculous. And like Amazon is introduced, we're back to the 90s cable television standards. Like I clicked on a movie at work because we got this big smart TV. So we just throw it on for background noise. And I put something up on Amazon. I didn't notice it was through their free thing. So every 15 minutes during the movie is a 2-minute ad break. I'm like, we're literally back to cable TV at this point.
Yeah.
To get access to any of these things.
Yeah. That's why when I do get on, like I'll usually something like Tubi, I'll find a movie on there because I don't mind an ad break now and then. And Tubi's pretty like fair about that. Like I don't feel like they over bombard it. But like I said, I'm a cheapskate. I'm easy to entertain. So I used to have like a HBO Max and a couple, and I've canceled all those subscriptions.
Yeah. It's not worth it, especially if you're in financial difficulties, which the things Americans got going for them is by 2030, 50% of America will be obese and also very poor.
Yeah.
Turns out consumerism is not good for the soul or body.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend recently. There's a lot of the freedoms we have are great, but I feel like it's made us too comfortable, and we've gotten soft and lazy on a lot of things where we shouldn't. Like, and I think I was talking about this in the manner of like the church, and I'm still unsure what denomination to call myself. And I go to a church that I like, where I think people are genuine. It's a Baptist church, but I don't even really call myself a Baptist. Like I agree at least with maybe 90% of what they say or what they believe. But I don't know. Like I was watching a week or two ago, and I was watching a movie called Paul, Apostle of Christ. And I usually don't watch much Christian cinema because it seems like most of it is made just for the sake of being Christian cinema, and there's nothing really heavy in it, But this one was really good because it's set in like the last days of Paul's life during Nero's rule. And like I was just watching in the movie how um, I'm going down a completely different road now on the subject, by the way, but like, you saw things in the movie like the charred bodies of Christians being like lit on fire in the streets just because they followed Jesus Christ. There's, and they didn't explicitly show much, but like men, women, and children who were Christians being thrown to wild animals in like Nero's circus, stuff like. And then I'm thinking these days in America, we get so worked up when some atheist makes a rude remark at us, and that's like the most Christians seem to have to go through these days. And like, and it's great, I was just thinking about like, the freedoms that we got living in the U.S., but like you go abroad and in Africa and like, or certain parts of Africa, the Middle East, there's Christian communities that still have to hide, and it got me to thinking too about I'm not finger pointing or anything, but there's so many people here that, they say they're Christians, but it just don't seem like they're genuine because it's just comfortable. Like you don't have much opposition. And then you got these sects like progressive Christianity where, they're like, yeah, I'm a Christian, but they adhere to every bit of society standards and everything that is, pushed by the media and corporations to tolerate these days. I'm like, that ain't very biblical either. Yeah, that was like a whole different tangent, but it just came to my mind because just talking about how comfortable things get here in the States for freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and all that. It's great, but
I think I agree with that. There's this idea that why there's a lot of people acting out in oppression is that we don't have oppression in the U.S.
Yeah,
we do, but not to the extent that people around the world are experiencing, right? And so they come up with these fake things that are not real issues to be oppressed about. Mm-hmm. That is not the same thing. I was on the Islam subreddit and somebody posted a screenshot of a Muslim woman asking if it was sinful to kill herself because the army in Sudan is coming through and she does not want to be gang raped. So she was asking if a scholar could say it would be permissible for her to kill herself because she doesn't want to go through that. And they said, can you get out? And she said, I can't. And it's like that's real oppression. That's real issues, right? And it's just sad what real people go through. And meanwhile, I complain, oh, my cat broke my computer monitor. Yeah. That's my difficult day. My difficult day isn't worrying about being raped and murdered and tortured by an army coming through, right? So I think
I think that's kind of like what I was trying to get to. So thanks for adding that, because sometimes like my train of thought ain't on a perfect set of rails, but and I guess this is kind of like a good spot to kind of bring my backstory with my faith in because growing up, I wasn't necessarily like, I wasn't brought up in church. I was like, I guess even like since as early as elementary school, like a hardcore, like quote unquote man of science, which that's questionable, the definition of that. But anyway, so I didn't believe at all. And once I got to high school, because so I live in Georgia, and I live in an area where you can be in Tennessee or Alabama in like a half hour, like right up in the corner. And this is like deep in the Bible Belt. So I'll just be straight up blunt and honest. There's a habit, like the nature of growing up, I've noticed with a lot of churches is that they're really cliquey, that it seems like finding someone that's in it to genuinely stay close to God is like a dime a dozen sometimes. I mean, some churches, I feel like at my church, everybody seems to be there for the right reasons, but there's a lot of churches that are so cliquey, and I hear about drama all the time. Like there's a girl I know right now that like started talking to or dating the pastor's son at her church, and she had to leave because they all started gossiping and saying she's a whore, and just because she was, and I know this girl ain't like that at all. It's just summing it up. There's so many cliques around here, that so many churches that are more of a clique to just gather on Sundays and socialize and gossip. And growing up, seeing a lot of that, I, in high school, got really rebellious against Christianity in general, and was like the total, like, typical anti-Christian metalhead edgelord, so to speak. And so I got turned away for a long time by, like, just to, I guess, American Christianity in general. And when I finally got to a point, like, because I was radical. I remember you had mentioned earlier talking about, like, with your interest in the deathcore genre and about like secular bands and getting on these really dark subjects with their music. And I was into a lot of that and like slam and stuff like that. And I like deathcore a good bit for a while, but I desensitized myself to a lot of like really harsh stuff just to get into this heavier music. Because, like the slam genre, there are so many bands that they make music about the most god awful, depraved stuff in existence.
Yes.
And like, so I got real desensitized. I started, even for a year or two, I started making music like that with friends and whatnot, just to be edgy. And then when I found, I should say when I found, or I like to say when Christ came to me, I started, I kind of steered away from that, but it took me forever to find, like, I didn't join a church until this year, because I grew up with this idea of American churches just being full of cliques, full of fake people. And I still held on to that even as I became a Christian. And it's not entirely true. I think that applies to a degree everywhere, because it's, I guess, in human nature to try and satisfy ourselves first, even though, we shouldn't be that way. But pardon me, sometimes when I'm telling these stories, like I forget where I was. But yeah, the thing is, like, there's these other nations where Christians cannot proclaim their faith, really, because they'll get punished as criminals, or they'll get killed. You don't have that here, and it's caused a lot of people to get way too comfortable and way too lax, to where they ain't living for God like they should. And I grew up seeing that, even as like I called myself an atheist, but I think I honestly, I knew the whole time back then when but so when I first started believing, I got more deeply fascinated with like the Eastern churches. Like as you can see, I got like, as I showed earlier, like an Orthodox flag with the icon of Jesus right here above my computer. But it took me a long time, because even when I first started making music with Resurrected Divinity, I still wasn't quite living right and thinking the way I should. I was a really judgy and angry person. And so I feel like when I look back at my like, because Resurrected Divinity's become a big part of my life since I started it. And I'd say only the past couple of years or something that I'm really, and with that project or stuff, I'm really happy with, because I used to write lyrics that were just really bitter, even for something that I called a Christian music project. But brain fart again.
Yeah,
You'll figure that out about me.
I can agree with that. I think an issue Christians have is there's no consistency in tradition because of Protestantism, because of evangelicalism, because of the Reformation movements.
Yeah.
Like I lived in Alabama, Tennessee, and Mississippi for a good bit, and I watched churches form around me. Mm-hmm. And how it formed to North Side, South Side, East Side, West Side Baptist, like it was freaking gangland, was because a potluck went bad. And
yeah,
that's all it took. I remember talking to one man about why there was steeples on some churches and not on the others, because there was a discussion that when Jesus comes back, the steeples will prevent the angels from protecting people. So we need to get rid of those. And that's why it was like that. And it's just like
that to me sounds like, yeah, that's ridiculous.
I think that's made up, but it's believable. Or in the instance of like the pastor's son dating the girl of the church calling her a whore. Mm-hmm. You get this thing where it's like a woman is raped by a member of the church, of a church, right?
Yeah.
And instead of blaming the abuser, why would you rape her? It's why were you a slut? Why were you dressed like that? It's like that's not how this works. The modesty of how I dress isn't related to how people act around me, right?
Yeah, and this like these problems are eventually, like, not rapidly, I wouldn't say, but it's going to lead to the public demonizing Christians more and more, even though there are those of us that are not like that at all. And I believe, like, eventually there's going to be some times of bad persecution again. And this is kind of like the spark. These people, these cliquey churches that act like this, where have a lot of members that act like this, is going to be it's like the match. It's going to burn out and lead to something like that again. Like we're still living in a fallen world. Like we're not past having dark times again, like the early Christians did under Nero. And
my thought is, like, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or Mormon, right? People call me, oh, you're not a Christian, right? And it's like, I've been around a lot of Baptists that I would say were atheists. And I would say an issue that my church is having is cultural Mormons, where they do things that are related with the church because that's what they grew up with, not because they believe it. And that is the same thing for, you have cultural Baptists, evangelicals, Protestants, where, like, they don't really believe it. They're just doing it because that's their life, like,
yeah.
You get some of these Baptist churches in a small county. There's one church in the entire county. Everybody knows everybody. And you just get these little cliques that happen, and say somebody new moves in, it can be very hard for somebody to enter into it. And so it becomes difficult. Or even in my church, I've seen people get upset or do things that are really silly. Like, we had a a bishop or pastor give out information to somebody who they shouldn't have, who had the person A had a restraining order against person B. Person B spoke to the pastor and got that person's information, right? Mm-hmm. Not supposed to have happened, right?
Yeah.
Like, why are you giving out people's information so freely? So it's just really silly the way that people take, and I think we have to remember that Christians and going to church, I'm not going to church to see how the apostles and Christ lived, right? I'm not going to church as it's a museum. I'm going to church because it's a laboratory. So I want there to be hypocrites, because that means we're obviously not doing well, and we should be better, and we should be striving to be better. I think a lot of people get so hung up on like reading about how Jesus was and what the apostles were, and in the book of Acts, and trying to live that life. They're so focused on looking back in time of how it was like to be a Christian that they forget to be a Christian.
Yeah, I guess so. In a way, though, I do. Here I go again with my brain don't work 100%. But this is why I'd be like, if I ever got put in like a debate situation, I'd be the world's worst. Like, never put me. But like, I love lately, and he did write like most of the New Testament. So if you open the New Testament, odds are you're going to read something the Apostle Paul wrote. But I've been trying to read a lot of him in particular, and there's something I believe people definitely need to glean from that. But yeah, I mean, you gotta be humble. You gotta realize this isn't about being better than anybody else, because when it comes down to it, like, I don't believe in the idea of a good person, because I believe as human beings, none of us are inherently good. I mean, we're all fallen individuals. I'm bad at telling you what verse it was, but not even Jesus Christ. He'd said something along the lines that no one is good but God, or that's rough paraphrasing, but yeah.
I think there's something people forget about is like Jesus Christ, when the Pharisees and Sadducees bring the woman who is caught in basically prostitution, adultery, before Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. And they basically are trying to get him to like accuse her. And that's when he does the whole, he who's without sin casts the first stone. I think a lot of people read to that point and they stop reading past it, when Jesus then looks to the woman, where are your accusers? And she says there are none. And what does he tell her? Go and sin no more, right?
Yeah.
And I think Paul also in 2 Timothy talks about fighting the good fight. Like, the hardest part about being a Christian is not being saved and getting baptized. It's enduring to the end. That's mm-hmm. where you go look in the Old Testament. You had King David, who was literally promised salvation in the kingdom of heaven, right? His exaltation there. And what does he do? He starts looking at Bathsheba, right? So
yeah,
even King David could mess it up. So, and I heard a pastor at this denominational church I went to. He said, until you're in heaven, you haven't made it.